Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to Hobby Night. This week I was going to paint Cursed City, but then disaster struck. I'm gonna have to find something else to paint. Something cursed and damned. That's right. My store's copies of Cursed City have been delayed, all 20 of them. So I will not be able to paint that this week, and I want to find something that was still cursed, damned even, to paint, to keep on theme and everything. And I was remembering the fact that I went to GenCon a couple years ago, was perusing the dealer's room, and came across this lovely booth that sold a bunch of old, new, and bits pieces for Warhammer 40k and fantasy. And amongst all of those treasures, after spending at least I think an hour in that booth, I discovered some Legion of the Damned miniatures, which I had never seen in the wild before, so I of course had to grab them. But I've sort of been sitting on them because I wasn't confident enough to tackle their flame decals. I wasn't really sure how I would approach that, but I have some ideas now. So after narrowing down the choices to 3 separate models, I went ahead and put up a poll on my Instagram story as well as the YouTube community site, and you guys voted. So I'm going to be painting the winner, and let's go ahead and get him prepped now with a nice Zenithal Prime. All right, well, I am here in the bunker and we're gonna do this live because I don't feel like doing a voiceover for it, but I've got my Legion of the Damned miniature here and I'm going to be doing a Zenithal spray prime on him. Now, I'm going to be skipping the black step for this. I'm actually gonna skip straight to the medium gray portion because I'm going to be using a lot of contrast paint on this miniature. So I do want those colors to still stand through, and I'm going to be painting his armor black, so I don't really think I need that color in there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get the first prime of the gray Mechanicus gray on there. Now, if you could step back, cameraman, please, so that you don't get a spray paint on the lens. All right, so the Mechanicus gray initial primer that we put on is dry. Now it is time to add some Corax white over top to get our Zenithal effect. Now I'm going to be going fairly heavy with this Corax white Zenithal because I will be using contrast paints and I want those to still show up well and actually show their true colors as much as I can. So let's go ahead and get to it. Hey guys, if you are enjoying this video, make sure to hit that like button and let me know about it down in the comments. If you haven't already and you're wanting more content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon for notifications. And then if you want even more hobby goodness, make sure to follow me on Instagram or Twitter at hobby_night. Now, let's go ahead and get back to the video. I love the effect that I got with my Zenithal Prime. My Legion of the Damned Space Marine is looking great, and I think he's going to work really well for the contrast paint that I'm going to be applying to him next. I'm going to start by applying Black Templar to some very key locations on his armor, specifically not focusing on the flames and the skulls, but everything else is going to be getting a coating of black. That's including the trim, his bolter, all of his weapons. So I think he's got a grenade or 2 on his belt, as well as a bolt pistol. All of those things are going to be getting a layer of black because they're either going to maintain black because it's the armor color, or it's going to get a metallic layer that I'm going to be applying in honestly a little bit. It won't be too long, but it's a really cool effect. I really am happy with how this black goes down. Now, this did take me actually a little bit more time than I was expecting, despite expecting that it was going to take me a fair amount of time. I was trying to be careful after all, and normally when I'm painting with contrast, I kind of just let the black go all over the place, or whatever color that I'm using, because I can do a cleanup stage. I'm very much wanting to avoid too much of a cleanup stage at any point during this so that I don't have to touch up or fix any of my Zenithal highlights that I got with my priming stage. We're now going to work on the joints of his armor. I avoided these with the black because I didn't want them to be too homogeneous. And what I ultimately decided was that I wanted a little bit of a gloomy, ghostly blue color tone. So for that, I picked up Space Wolf Gray. I thought that the muted gray hue of it with the little bit of a blue tint would work really well for this ethereal dead creature. And I wanted to avoid using any warm color tones because I really want just the warm color tones to be the skulls and the flames, because that'll really make him pop, and this blue worked perfectly. It's just dark enough to do exactly what I wanted. One other thing that I wanted to do in Space Wolf Gray is the holster to his gun. Again, I wanted to avoid warm color tones for the leather, so I thought this would blend really nicely. When I was doing some research for this project, I was looking to see what people actually did for the trim on these Marines, because I had seen some where it was just left black, and I didn't really like that. I didn't think it was going to give me enough contrast on my miniature to really make him stand out. So for the trim on his armor, the trim on his helmet, and then a little bit of detailing on his bolter, as well as the grenades, we're going to put some Leadbelcher down. Now, I really like using Basilicanum Gray as a watered down wash for my metallics. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that over top of my Leadbelcher. I'm also going to be applying this wash briefly to the joints as well on my Marine. They were a little bit more blue than I wanted, so the Basilicanum knocks back that color just a smidge, but I'm not going to be putting Basilicanum on the holster. That I actually want to maintain that true Space Wolf Gray color tone, because I think it'll just make it stand out a little bit more, which I really want. My Legion of the Damned Marine is looking pretty good, but you might notice that I did get some black in some places that I didn't want it. So I'm gonna do a very small cleanup stage here using a little bit of Ulthuan Gray. I picked this because I still wanted to have a little bit of a gray undertone, but I still wanted this color to be very, very bright. Now, I do end up doing a little bit more cleanup on the flames than I originally intended because I didn't thin my Ulthuan Gray as much as I wanted, but I think this is gonna work out in my favor because of what I decide to do with the flames and how I accomplish getting the color effect that I want. So I'm pretty happy with it. Thankfully, I did a pretty good job on the skulls and didn't get too much black paint on those, although I did hit a few spots, so I just do a light sort of dry brush to basically maintain that zenithal highlight. It's time to work on those glorious flames. And I thought for a very long time exactly how I was going to approach this, because this was the most challenging part of painting this miniature, is figuring out how I wanted to go about accomplishing the hot rod flame effect that I wanted to get on these. Now, ultimately, I decided to go with a full contrast method. I did debate doing either base and layer paints and doing maybe a wet blend or something like that, a little bit like what I had done on Abaddon's flame that's on his base, but ultimately decided because the panels on the miniature were actually very flat, that contrast might actually work in my favor here because I can almost treat it like a glaze. So to begin, I'm going to basically put a foundation of Iyanden yellow on all of the flame surfaces. This is going to give me that base yellow color at the bottom that we're going to basically glaze over top with some reds and yellows here, or reds and oranges rather, in a bit to basically get that flame effect. I'm very excited for it. Let's go ahead and move on to the next color. It's time now to bring out even more of that hot rod flame color, and for this, I'm going to be using Gryph-hound Orange next, but I'm going to be thinning this paint a bit. I want to treat it as a glaze, like I said, so I want to basically water down my paint so that I don't have a huge amount of the pigment left in my brush. I also want to make sure that my brush is not super overloaded with paint because I don't want this to flow completely down to the bottom. Once I'm happy with where my brush is at, I'm going to gently glide it along the tops of the flames, working my way down until I've created a nice gradient over top of my yellow, creating the foundation of my flame effect. The final color for my flames is going to be Blood Angels Red. And again, we are going to be doing this basically the same way that we did the orange previously. We're going to thin down the Blood Angels Red paint. We're going to make sure that our brush is not overloaded. And then I'm going to basically just hit the tippity tops of those red flames so that I get this really cool effect on them. And as soon as I get to this red portion, they pop immediately and I become just so ecstatic with what I've accomplished. I was nervous about where this was gonna go, and especially with painting some of the like flames on his head and everything, I was very nervous with how I was gonna have my control be, but I was pretty clean and I think the effect looks awesome. My little damned space marine has a bunch of skulls all over him, but especially this glorious bone Aquila on his chest. And for that, I'm going to be going to my favorite paint, Skeleton Horde. I'm going to be applying this fairly lightly over top the entire skeletal portion, specifically focusing on that chest piece because it's so cool. I really want it to pop, as well as making sure to hit all of the other bone locations on the miniature, being on his belt. There's like the thing on his pouch, there's the ones on his shoulders, there's also the bone piece on his butt. Actually, he's got a little bit of his spine sticking out of his butt, so we made sure to hit that. Don't want to miss it. And a couple other places as well, and I think this went very, very nicely. My marine is basically done except for his base, so I think we're gonna focus on that next. What I'm going to do here is put down first a layer of Mechanicus gray to give me sort of a neutral foundation, and then I'm going to put over top of it a bit of Nuln Oil to give me a little bit of an organic look. Now the reason I'm going with these colors is because I'm going to be using a texture paint next, and that's going to be a crackle effect. And if I get any large cracks, I want them to be able to show through and still be visible, but I don't want them to stand out super boldly because I really want most of the color to be on the flames themselves and what I'm going to be doing for the tufting here in a little bit. So we put our foundation colors down, and now we're going to move on to Mordant Earth, which is a crackle paint that I really, really like, but don't actually use very often. And I thought it would be so appropriate for my Legion of the Damned Marine because it's deep black, he's sort of gothy, and I figured it would just work. And I wanted to keep the ground, like I said, relatively neutral because of the tufts that I was going to be using. So after putting on a pretty hefty layer of this, I let it dry for a couple hours thoroughly to make sure that I got some really nice cracks, which I did. They weren't super outstanding, and I don't really know if the gray shows through super boldly, but it doesn't matter because now we're moving on to some alien red gamer grass tufts. I showed these off recently in my studio tour, and I wanted to use them on this guy because I figured they would be just so thematically appropriate. I kind of imagine he's standing in whatever plane that he exists in before he's summoned in as a, Imperial demon to help on the battlefield and everything. So that's sort of my foundation for this basing. Now let's go ahead and look at the final result. And here he is, my little Legion of the Damned guy, and my goodness, I'm actually incredibly stoked with how this guy turned out. I was very nervous going into painting his flames because I really wasn't sure how I was going to approach it, but the contrast method that I decided to go with worked wonderfully. I love the effect I got on them, and I think that my tufting really ties together and allows him to look like maybe this is the plane that he's coming from before he arrives on the battlefield and everything as the Imperial demons that they are. But I really enjoy this whole miniature. The process for painting him was actually really fun and honestly, other than the flames being a little bit complicated in the sense that I needed to be a little bit careful, and applying the black, I suppose, was a little bit slow because I needed to be extra careful to not lose too much of my zenithal. The actual painting process for this guy went really smoothly and very quickly, which I was not fully expecting. I think I was a little intimidated by the fact that he had so much detail because he's a resin model, and so they get these gaps and scrapes and almost imperfections and everything, but it kind of adds to this mini, and I think I made it work with what I had from honestly picking up this mini at GenCon, which was really cool. I've said it already, but I am just super happy with him. I'm going to save so I have 6 of them in total. I think I'm going to save doing the other ones for other specials because they all have different sculpts. And I think I want to try doing different things on each of them, maybe playing around with it, and then have the full Legion done at some later date. So look forward to that in the future when maybe things don't show up like they're supposed to and I have to find other means or other things to paint going forward. But I really enjoyed this. I think it was a great substitute for Cursed City. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed this, and if you haven't already, feel free to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. I'll see you guys next time. I've been Angela, and you've been watching Hobby Night.